Point.
Oui.
I'm up next.
Mr. Sabura.
Yes.
Mr. Dreeshen.
No.
Mr. Tolmie.
No.
Mr. Patzer.
No.
Ms. Stubbs.
No.
Mr. Simard. Nope. Mr. Angus.
Yes.
6 yeas, 5 nays.
Clause 61 carries. Clause 62. For the consideration of Clause 62, members of the committee will have noted on the agenda that the amendments creating new clauses 62.1 and 62.2 come in the middle of amendments for Clause 62. That is because the committee must study the proposed amendments in order in which they would appear in the bill. The amendments creating new clauses 62.1 and 62.2 will therefore be moved and voted on during the study of Clause 62. At the end, once the amendments in Clause 62 are disposed of, the committee will vote on Clause 62 as amended, or not. If amendments to create new clauses 62.1 and 62.2 are adopted, they will be reflected in the reprint of the bill that will be produced for use at report stage. Okay, everybody understands that?
Clear as mud.
Great. Okay, so now we will proceed to G3.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
So
Mr. Bruson.
this is, like I said, there would be a group of amendments that I would be moving in respect of coordinating with the Impact Assessment Act. So specifically, this motion separates provision referencing conditions established under the Impact Assessment Act from other provisions in Clause 62 pertaining to offshore renewable energy authorizations. So it's putting, like I said, for the others, it's a separate coming into force.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Patzer?
Yeah, I actually had just a quick clarification on the lines here. In, I guess it would be Clause C, or Part C, not Clause C, but Part C of this. It says, by adding after line 10 on page 38, I was just curious with the fact that we're deleting 3 lines on the page prior. Is that not going to impact where the next portion is going to fall in, or maybe not? Or does it all just move up and it's all fine? Maybe I'm just overlooking there, overthinking this, but does it not change which line we're talking about here?
Give us a moment. As discussed with the clerk, it does not change the lines, but if there are any required changes, they will be done at reprint.
Yeah, it's just a small technical thing as well. I was wondering. So okay, no, that's fine. Yeah, I think our outstanding comments about our concerns on the Impact Assessment Act still stand. It should have been dealt with in advance instead of having to create this provision for TBD to be included in the bill. But either which way, yeah, thanks for clarifying that small technical point for me.
Thank you, Mr. Patzer. We'll now go to Mr. Dreeshen.
Well, thank you, and I hope that I'm in the right spot. So on page 38, section 2, subsection B, that's where it says the Minister of the Environment has issued a decision statement under section 65 of that act. So there's one thing to talk about the unconstitutionality of it, but here we are also putting into the bill a direction from a minister that speaks to Section 65 of the Act, and I'm not sure there's a lot of the Act that was considered not constitutional. I'm assuming this is also one of those, is the discussion that we had earlier where we're all going to fix this later, don't worry about it. Is that also the remedy that we would suggest is going to come about in Section 2B, where it speaks of the role of the Minister of the Environment?
Thank you very much for your question. Before we answer, just a clarification for officials. The question that you're answering is in pertaining to a section that is addressed later and not part of this particular motion. So I'm not sure if we are to defer answering that question to the later clause or to answer it now.
I respect that, and just, because we're going in a lot of different directions here, there is another one that I will speak to when it is the right time, and that is Section 3, where it does specifically speak of the Minister of Environment and this under Section 9 of the Impact Assessment Act and the things that it allows them to do if they so choose. So anyway, this section that we're dealing with right now on page 38 deals a lot with the Minister of the Environment having kind of full force do that which he seems to deem to be done. And so hopefully we can work that into the discussion. But if it's not ready on this clause, I'm prepared to wait. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Dreeshen. Do we have any other speakers, just to make sure? We don't. So on G3, shall G3 carry? Yes. Call the vote. Roll, please.
Mr. Eldeg?
Yes.
Mr. Bruson?
Yes.
Mr. Batiste?
Yes.
Madame Lapointe?
Oui.
Mr. Sorbara?
Yes.
Mr. Dreeshen?
No.
Mr. Tomey?
No.
Mr. Patzer?
Nope.
Ms. Stubbs?
No.
Monsieur Simard?
Oui.
Mr. Angus?
Yes.
7 yeas, 4 nays.
G3 is carried. BQ15 is moot and cannot be moved since BQ4 was defeated, so we will skip past that. We'll go to BQ16, Monsieur Samart.
Oui, en étant
Yes. In order to be consistent, the amendment will be to ensure that every project undergoes a specific environmental assessment, and otherwise meaning that the current regional evaluation is necessary, but that is not sufficient. And again, following the many witnesses we heard, so we stress that the lack of a specific project evaluation could lead to conflicts and legal problems with regard to fishing activities and environmental defense groups and other users. So the text is very simple. And 2.1, on receipt by the regulator of an application for an authorization referred to in subsection 1 or of an application to amend the authorization, the regulator shall conduct an environmental assessment of the proposed work or activity if the proposed work or activity is not subject to an impact assessment under the Impact Assessment Act. B, by adding after line 25 of page 37, E1, an environmental assessment conducted by the regulator.
Bruson.
Thank you. Look, safety and environmental protection are really important functions of the regulators, and so, I respect that and the intent as to what Monsieur Simard has put forward. But regardless of that fact, regulators do currently take on environmental assessments, but we don't need this this proposed amendment. In fact, it would be outside of the scope of what was negotiated with the provinces, and just want to keep highlighting that this is what we're talking about is an agreement that we have negotiated with provinces. So I'm going to oppose this proposed amendment.
Use a little bit.
Thank you, Mr. Bruson. Mr. Angus.
Thank you. Just on that, and I read it over, but from my understanding of the regulators and the job that they have to do, particularly in the fragile North Atlantic, big projects need to be properly assessed, and that's the process. What I feel is problematic of this is it's overkill of the federal government telling them that they're going to have to do one when it is the standard operating practice. So I don't think it's necessary, but I appreciate my colleague bringing it forward to remind us that all these projects, if they're moving ahead, are going to be in very sensitive waters, fisheries, all kinds of issues that have to be looked at. But that is the job of the regulator to do that, and so we don't have to tell the regulator to do the job that the regulator is already obligated to do.
Thank you, Mr. Angus. Okay, we will now proceed to the vote. Shall BQ 16 carry? Please call the roll, please.
Mr. Aldag? No. Mr. Bruson?
No.
Mr. Batiste?
No.
Madame Lapointe?
No.
Mr. Sorbara?
Nope.
Mr. Dreeshen?
Nope.
Mr. Tolmy?
No.
Mr. Pratzer?
Nope.
Ms. Stubbs?
No.
Monsieur Simard?
Oui.
Mr. Angus?
No.
1 yea, 10 nays.
BQ 16 is defeated. We'll now move to G4. Okay, Mr. Bruson.
This is another one of the cleanup type of amendments. It's just to correct a minor error in the legislation. So it will remove, there's an errant word, B, that was inserted there. So it's just to strike out that word. It would also keep it consistent with the Nova Scotia legislation that's going to be following this.
Okay, is there any further discussion on G4? We'll now proceed to the vote. Shall G4 carry? Please call the roll.
Mr. Aldag? Yes. Mr. Bruson?
Yes.
Mr. Batiste?
Yes.
Madame Lapointe?
Oui.
Mr. Sorbara?
Oui.
Mr. Dreeshen?
We can agree.
No.
Or not, doesn't matter.
Mr. Tolmy?
No.
Mr. Pratzer?
Yes.
Ms. Stubbs?
We're free voting, yes.
Mrs. Simard?
Can we stop the vote?
We like democracy.
Mrs. Simard?
Oui.
Mr. Angus?
Yes. I almost voted no, but I'm going to vote yes.
So 9 yeas, 2 nays.
G4 carries. G4 is carried. We'll now proceed to new clause 62.1 and begin with G5. Do we have a member, Ms. DeBruson?
So this is, you're going to hear this from me a few times. It's the same grouping of amendments to deal with a separate coming into force under the Impact Assessment Act. So this one would create a new subclause 62.1 under the Impact Assessment Act heading to allow for a separate coming into force for certain sections under clause 62.
Hey, I don't see any other speakers. We'll go to the vote. Oh, you got one?
I
Okay.
do have a question,
Mr. Patzer,
actually.
go ahead.
Sorry. I guess this is kind of a technical question, but like we still have a whole pile of Clause 62 amendments, and we're just kind of brushing off to a brand new clause, and then we're going to circle back to the rest of it. Like, I'm just curious why we're doing it in that fashion. It just, and then later on we've got 62.2, but I think that comes up after we're done all of the 62 clause. Yeah. No, actually it's not. There's a 62.2 clause, and then we circle back to 62 again as well. So I'm just kind of curious as to why we are jumping around to different clauses and then back again. I'm just wondering, Chair, if you want to clarify why we are playing hopscotch with the clauses here.